He kōna e purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
Te hewa Māori ora ki te whaiau ki te marama ki au we. Te hewa Māori ora engai we know mai. Yes, it is Māpuna the podcast again this week. And our guest is Professor Poia Rewi, the Chief Executive, or Tumu Whakarae of Te Mātāwai, the outgoing Chief Executive. Te Mātāwai is the independent body aiming at restoring Te Reo Māori as a first language in Māori homes and communities. How are we going? Does Professor Poia Rewi talk about revitalisation of Te Reo Māori, or normalisation of Te Reo Māori, or naturalisation of Te Reo Māori? And also, what does he make of the art of whai kōrero, the spoken word, oratorical articulation on the marae now? Is it in a better shape than it was when he was hearing the elders of his time as a child speak on his own marae in Murupara? And we also talk about his academic life. Yes, he was once the Dean of Māori at Te Whare Wānanga o Otago, now called Otago Whakaihu Waka Otago University, and his wife is the Dean of Te Pua Wānanga ki te ao at University of Waikato. So could a possible return to academia happen now, or does he have another interest which he might pursue, helping benefit the communities enriched by Te Reo Māori me ona tikanga today? So our guest is Professor Poia Rewi. And don't forget, next week we will be live from Te Matatini o Te Kāhui Maunga, Te Matatini in New Plymouth. That's next week on Māpuna. Engari mō tēnei raro e te iwi, mea nei, ngā kōrero, ahorangi, Poia Rewi. E te ahorangi tēnā koe?
Tēnā koe ta rangatira. O sea, tēnā koe te Māpuna, e ngina kupu ki tō tātou rangatira ki iri tāna kōrero nei. Kia Māpuna mai te roi ki aia, kia Māpuna mai te mihi ki aia, tāna whānau huki, nāna, te kuia i tau tuko retu ia tāna kōki i te reo. E whakauhi o uki tēnā kuia, nā rātau ko wana hoa te wā, i whakamātautau te ao tūmata whānui, te ranga tūmata whānui, ki tēnei hanga te ao Māori.
E nā koe, tēnā koe te ahorangi e rā kupu ki tō tātou kahurangi. I said it might be a fairly incongruous that you and I, as adept as we may be in conversing in our preferred medium of communication, perhaps, that we then have to switch and speak in English for the benefit of our audience. But I thank you for your time. And I wanted to start, actually, if you don't mind, not right at the beginning, but certainly and I referred to it with Te Kākono, but to your academic background. Because you are an academic, and I just wanted to begin by asking, is that where you will go now?
That's a very good question, Julian. I think academy was just part of it, and you talk about the whole ecosystem. You know, there's an academy in a Western institution, and there's an academy in our marae, there's an academy in our kitchens, there's an academy in our lands, listening to the water, looking at the fauna and flora around our communities. They're all academies of sorts. The instruction may not be as formal, but the instruction is definitely one of growth that takes time to mature.
I see what you've done there. You've definitely turned the kaupapa away from you and your academic career into the wider notion of academia in Te Ao Māori, and I understand why you have done that. The reason why I ask is because I just want you to understand that for those of us who have learned and are still learning, you know, the art of oratory, oratorical articulation on a marae, that your work is fairly seminal, particularly with your thesis on whai kōrero, talking to the likes of, well, even my own uncle, actually. He was Dr. Patu Hoheapa at the time. He became Sir Patu Hoheapa, of course. But he was one of the people that you interviewed, Wharehuia Murori and many others, Po Te Marae and many others, who I understand actually may have been your examiners. Why was whai kōrero such a point of focus for you to the point at which you undertook the study you did?
I think it wasn't initially, Julian, as being one of a few Māori in the Western Academy at the time when I was at Waikato University. Pakeke, those elders you mentioned and many others were almost shaping where I would end up. At that time, our elders were passing away very rapidly. So mine was not so much about launching into this subject area of Māori oratory as a personal endeavour. Of course, it was really, that was the medium to engage with my own pakeke and those of others, which I'm most thankful to, capture as much information while they were still alive. So that was more the driver. So recording on marae and then various forums was really just an ability to capture, to almost bank knowledge, to bank language at that time, talking about the 80s. And then later on, that one of the smart aleck professors you mentioned there, Professor Moore said, hey boy, what you doing? You may as well carry on. And, I think it was Te Hungare Oa. What you doing, boy? First do the BA, then carry on, may as well carry on with the honours, and then end up turning that into a PhD. So some of the information I already had launched into. I was really using that as only one, get information back to those 5 family members. So all the recordings, interviews I did, most of those went back to the direct descendants of those informants, those participants.
You speak of it as if it was an appropriate vehicle because of the serendipity of longitude, just the fluke of timing. I read it, and I've heard you mention it before, and I thought it was a passion topic for you.
No. I'm not saying that it wasn't passion, but it wasn't something I aspired to do, and was really just about getting information. So, because I started off, getting histories about my own marae before our elders passed away. And I don't know, ended up in the whai kōrero space. I think I might have saw some of Sir Robert Mahuta's writings and thought, oh, that's an interesting kaupapa. But sitting and listening on marae was that school. That was the lecture theatre, I think, before I went to university. There's a lot of school out on the open courtyard. The informal conversations that went on between our pakeke kuia and koroua on the pai, before the kaupapa, and then in between. So on the downtime when manuhiri would go to have a kai, those koroua again would wānanga kaupapa, and that's where the interest in learning took place. So, I just said, well, that's my whare wānanga, so to speak. I thought that was a great school. And in my current role Te Mātāwai, I apply that model quite strongly in that there are no components greater than the other. Especially in the public sector, there's a higher dependence or deferral to hierarchy. Whereas on our marae, it's your best orators, there's no kai at the back. The whole marae as a whole going to cop some flack for that. And likewise, those people ensuring the wharepaku are clean, those are really important. So it doesn't matter if you're the janitor, if you're the ringawera, or you're the person who's not always visible at the marae, but takes kai there and then departs. It makes sure all those components are synchronised to ensure the success of the event, especially for maintaining the mana and status of the host people.
You talk about status, and I do want to talk about the current status of Te Reo Māori in your view, and who better potentially to talk about that given A, your imminent departure from your role at Te Mātāwai, but also B, your academic history. How would you describe the current state of the performance of whai kōrero that you see and hear on marae today, vis-a-vis that which you were talking about, and you didn't mention any specific names, and maybe you don't want to, those kaumātua that you talked about before you went to university, or indeed in your foundational years when you were a child? How would you describe the current state of whai kōrero today? Does it retain the same pithy aphorism and metaphorical allusion and colloquialism and that kind of dynamic that you were probably used to seeing and hearing in your time?
I think whai kōrero as a single component, definitely there's some, they just transcend anything. They transcended everything I even imagined while undertaking that investigation whai kōrero. But that comes from 20, 30 years of development from Timothy and the likes, and his crew there, the panikiretanga, the kurereo, all of those 20 to 30 years of development to these orators, and male and female nowadays, really, really high proficiency, grounded, many of them grounded in the knowledge and information from their own kāinga, their own environments, and eloquent to order and present that knowledge in a form that is entertaining, dramatical, emotional, and engaging. So I think in terms of that, the whaikoa is very much alive. But there's always a question mark there, is whether that, when we talk about in the book, is te ao o te whaikoa. So
te whaikoa.
not whaikoa in isolation. It's
Yes.
everything that comes to say, what is the development going on? Is the speaker there currently, are they nurturing, bringing through others? Or is it a solo event so that I can showcase my ability to a limited audience who understand this esoteric information and words? Or is it to bring everyone with you and be a forum to develop capability and capacity, not just on the marae, but the whole interface between the kai karanga, the kai kōrero, the marae, looking at its next generations, ensuring the succession, front and back information, local knowledge, bringing that all together. And for some of them, there's a question around some of those orators saying, well, they've never really been honed in the old model, as they put it. In the old model, so they're saying you haven't got that type of grounding. So it's been an accelerated forum for many. But in terms of the proficiency and the knowledge, man, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But then again, it's just going back to other ones, is does the person can learn an adage or learn about some analogy to the natural environment? Have they seen that tree? Do they know that type of animal, that plant? Or is it just really something you've learned and you're able to express it without actually touched it, felt it, and known the environment that's brought that tree or that plant to life and part of its own development, being able to work the back and the front. And this isn't a criticism. I mean, at the time, and even now, when we say we're still trying to get the balance now, where more people who were proficient at the back than they were in the front. So need to get their balance right. Okay, hopefully that balance has been restored and it can be maintained going forward. Because whaikoa is not everyone's forte. People can know a lot about it. Not everyone wants to get up and speak in public. But some actually want to, and the most useless at cooking and can't do dishes and can't do much, but they're bloody great orators. So put them into the place where they have the most strength and proficiency rather than push those who are uncomfortable to a place they really don't want to be.
You find yourself in a position now, after 5 years or so, as a CEO of an organisation called Te Mātāwai. For the uninitiated, what or who is Te Mātāwai?
Te Mātāwai is probably the most latest attempt in terms of public funding to bring some authority back to the people to drive their own outcomes. So we're only talking about te reo Māori. So Te Mātāwai came from, in my opinion, came from years of looking and say, well, when the Māori language was facing destruction or its death, we put some strategies in place. The Crown put strategies in place. The language continued to decline. So I got to a point in time, to 2010, around Te Pai Mutsuake, he said, actually, give it back to Māori. It belongs to Māori. It comes from Māori. Perhaps it's time for the Māori to restore the language. So Te Mātāwai was born from that thought. And now a large role of Te Mātāwai is to build capability and capacity within our own communities. And I think Te Mātāwai copped some flack in the past. It was saying, well, you Māori let it die in the first place. What makes you think you can bring it back to life or you can restore it? And I think that I'm quite can confidently say right now, I've seen so much change, even the small time I've been here, Julian, of our people having doubt at the beginning. But now that the self-agency is definitely coming through, they've got increased confidence, that self-belief, that they can reclaim some of that rangatiratanga for themselves. And they're starting to really thrive in that environment to a point where some of those people say, actually, thank you Te Mātāwai for the investment funding you've provided. We think we've got to a place now where we can look to ourselves to carry on and reach the goal of reinstating the language in our marae and in our homes at one stage. So Te Mātāwai works with the people. It has a representation of on its board from right across Aotearoa, including some of our legacy agencies, Te Tārangi, etc., Ngā Whakarae, Te Nganoho Taone, Taiatiki, Ngā Kura Iwi, Ngā Mahi Pāpāho Katoa, Ngā Hapori, They're all included along with the iwi. So iwi have representation on Te Mātāwai, say 109 iwi in terms of the Act, who now they bring their voice to the table. So we can almost say that the voice of the people is now engaging the Crown. So Te Mātāwai is established as the Crown, as the partner with the Crown in revitalising te reo Māori.
Aorangi, do you mind if I ask you a question about that? How would you describe the current relationship as it pertains to te reo, and indeed the role that Te Mātāwai has? How would you describe the relationship between the Crown and Te Mātāwai in the way that it should be?
I think it's a lot of improvement to be made, a lot of development to be made in that part. There are some pockets where we have seen some progress in terms of different agencies looking at Te Mātāwai as well and saying, hey, you guys, for example, the Ministry of Education, looking at some of that community development of language with whānau, they look to Te Mātāwai to support in that area. But there are other areas where I think that habit of a Crown, a government saying we are the ultimate authority, partnership is probably still a challenging concept to get their minds around. So it hasn't been fully applied and operationalised. But there are always conversations and the desire by Te Mātāwai to improve that area. And working along Minister Pōtaka just recently, Minister Jackson before that, and Minister Mahuta before that, that's been slowly increasing to a point where right now the Minister in Te Mātāwai, the co-chairs, have now launched a look at how Māori language can be better advanced as in a partnership space, as a collective, to meeting the goal of returning the language as a spoken language. And Te Mātāwai's ultimate goal is for the reo to be unbroken across multiple generations, and that's the sign where the reo Māori is thriving and it's safe ana kukai po te reo.
How do we best do that? How do we best achieve that goal?
In the current environment, with the coalition, there's some strong discussions going on how that can be achieved right now. I think a lot more conversations need to be had. We've got very few ministers, Māori ministers in the coalition right now, but really getting the support of those few in there and showing the partners that Māori can do it, give us the opportunity, and they'll have sustainable outcomes. I think that's what Te Mātāwai is in, for sustainable outcomes. So the intergenerational transmission is to ensure that it doesn't die, and then we have to lean back into Crown funding or Crown resources to give it the boost that it requires like it has in the past. To understand that at Te Mātāwai, Māori in general, their philosophy is for sustainability. It's been here for hundreds and hundreds of years. Sustainability of our resources, our longevity of our people. So I think that's the model Te Mātāwai plays. It wants to ensure that it's not just a drop in one point in time which dries up and has no longitudinal influence or result. And one of my colleagues at Te Mātāwai, Mr. Mona, she uses the analogy of a bathtub. If you're pouring, you want to fill your tub with water and there's no plug in there, just be prepared to let that water keep flowing and draining the source. Whereas Te Mātāwai said, no, we need to put a little plug in there so that every litre of water goes in there, has some benefit beyond a single drop.
The phrases we hear a lot are revitalisation, normalisation, integration when it comes to te reo Māori. So when I hear you say ki ukai po anō te reo, I hear something different. But what is the best way, and I know you're talking about intergenerational transmission, but is that different to what we hear when we think of revitalisation and normalisation and integration and all those other isations that there are out there at the moment when it comes to Māori language?
Absolutely. Some of our board members, they've used the word naturalisation. So you can talk about it might be, it's normal, but is it natural? It's normal to hear it, but is it in this natural environment? But definitely ukai po is a point in time. I think when you're not thinking about it, it's the natural instinct of the mother is to is the default language is Māori before the child is born, while the child is born, to while the child is growing up. And I guess hopefully it's a time when also the language is of a status where the kids, they're going to grow up and they're going to see and hear French and Italian and Japanese and all these other foreign languages. And wow. But a point they get them and say, actually, I want my Māpuna to also have this language. And actually not even asking them what they want to have it is, they're going to get it regardless. But then be in an environment where they see it as it is an environment that needs the language to be there. And it's part of their well-being as Māori, as people. So it's not the language in isolation, it's to fully engage as Māori, to see the colour, the nuances, the smell and the sounds of our language, of our concepts, our values, our histories, our narratives, all of those is the language itself provides a bit more colour, sound and smell than English ever will. And I think it's if you can get the generations to not even have to think about that, not worry about it, revitalising it because they think it's dying. It's just, it is. It needs to exist. It will exist. But to have the generation not even conscious that they're doing that, then it's being given their life. So it just naturally goes from the mother, in the first instance, from the mother to the infant. And the infant grows up with the language around it. And hopefully with the father or other parent also playing a supporting role in that.
How far? I mean, we see and hear that this happens now, but we want this to happen to a much larger degree with a much larger group of people, particularly predominantly within Māori whānau. And I know Te Mātāwai has a long-term strategic vision, Hawaii Tupuna 27, Hawaii Mokopuna 2040. So is 2040 the time at which, in your view, that we have got to the point where that kōrero, ki ukai poa no te reo, has been achieved and realised? Or are we there now already, Ahorangi?
I don't have the data to say if we've got it, if we're there right now. There are folk linguists out there saying, no, we're a long way off. And there are pockets that are saying we're already there. I mean, you've already got the natural generation of kohanga reo now, grandparents, some of them. So now they're already at the three generation is now natural in those homes. So for some pockets, it's already been achieved. And that was without Te Mātāwai, driven off the models, our kura kaupapa, our kohanga reo, wharekura. And I think the drive of the communities around them. And we now see the likes of those kapohaka at National Te Matatini, born out of that cohort of kohanga reo starters who Te Miritana was central to. But I think in terms of what the communities we have, we still are a long way off from having that spread throughout. Some whānau have never lost the multiple generations. Maino has never been broken. It's never been interrupted. And those whānau are interesting case studies. I think that why or how did these whānau become those few who've never lost it in all of their lives and don't know what it's like to lose it and are likely to keep proliferating that model without even being told to do so. It's become so natural, so normal in their lives. It's just what they've seen, what they've experienced, what they've heard. So it must be the right thing to do. But I don't have the statistics. I think 2040, we might be pushing it. But I think a tāwhia ki te kore e whakakitenga ka te iwi. So I think you got to have the vision. Ko tahi mano kaika, have the vision. Is it achieved when you want it to be? Perhaps not, but you've launched on that pathway and you've got something to drive to achieve. So I think 2040 is definitely a goal. And I think realising that 8 years ago, neither was the Te Mātāwai model geared to fully service all of its responsibilities and its purpose and functions. And I didn't say this lightly. That model and that aspiration was perhaps premised on the fact that there was capability and capacity already in place. So what I see in Te Mātāwai is a lot of capability and capacity going on, development in those communities. And it will come through. But sometime I'd like to think that there's going to be an exponential growth. So it might be a slow incline at the moment, but at some point in time, those numbers will rise very rapidly, and I've seen that in the kotahi mana kaika model. It pushed on very slow when our friends and whānau down in South Island, but I got despondent, and all of a sudden there was just a trip, and it just peaked.
Yeah.
So after seeing that model, who knows?
You speaking of the South Island, you were at the University of Otago for a long time. In actual fact, many of our listeners will know that you were the Dean of Te Tumu at Otago University. Now, Otago Whakaihu Waka, I think, is the name. Otago Whakaihu Waka. Why did you... Because this is what I understand the case to be, and I could be completely wrong. Most people who undertake those kinds of roles... That's them for the rest of their life, ahorangi. You know, they become professors, they become deans in schools and all those kinds of things, and then they become emeritus professors, is maybe the case with you as well. But, you know, they stay in that... Look at my Uncle Pat, they stay in that life for a long time. Ahorangi, research, kaupapa. What sparked the interest to want to leave what many would see as being a safe job? Well, maybe not, given what's happening in universities nowadays and funding or what have you. But what sparked the interest to want to leave that safe and secure world and research and in mātauranga and in whare wānanga to something like, which was very much a fledgling organisation in Te Mātāwai, developed and evolved in 2016 through the Te Ture Mo Te Reo Māori, to go into something which is a little bit different, in fact, maybe a lot different.
Well, I think I got sent down there from Whare Rewi for some sin I must have committed. So
Is that right?
So he sent me down there.
I didn't know. What happened there? Ahorangi?
Well, at the time, with Hirini passing, stayed on at Waikato University to support Hirini in those latter years.
Yep.
And, you know, dear friend and colleague of ours, both of ours, Murumara, John Moorfield,
Yep.
he went down to Otago to support with Māori curriculum and language down there. And they just asked, you know, would you consider coming down? And Whare said, well, off you go, boy. Go down there and give them a hand. So that's how I ended up in the South Island. Fortunately, I had a loving wife, didn't even question what we were going to do and the how and all of that. Just said yes. So we all launched off down there. And I think knowing where there's somewhere you can really give land energy into and your heart into was really important to me. I didn't realise that so much at the time, but stayed down there, work with all of our Naitahu friends, you know, kotai mana kai, a lot of colleagues down there, the Paulis, the Allisons, and the Charisma and Hana, all of them, just trying to support them in the language development across the Wairangaitau. At the university, of course, many North Island students came down there. A lot of development was required, but there was a desire down there to do so. And I think the university there was receptive to growth in that area. So you got support from many non-Māori down there. And it was a pleasure to work with that type of environment who wanted to grow opportunity. Look for opportunities for our students who weren't at the likes of Waikato, who were leading in terms of Māori knowledge and development at the time. And still do lead to a large extent outside of our wānanga. So those were, after staying down for that time, playing a more leadership role, working with our communities down there. After achieving that, was Te Mātāwai was the next call. Being a new entity in its infancy, heard the call for, you know, come and help out over here if you can. So that's where I am now. Where I have been for the last almost 5 years. And I think the other thing for me, though, Julian, was I found that as I got promoted for different roles at university, I found that the further I climbed in the academic world, I seemed to feel like I was distancing more from direct benefit to our people, to Māori. So that was a bit of a call there. So Te Mātāwai was 100% to our people. I think that's what I think I'd like to be. And I think the other fact was my tuhen Rawuni and I had been researching the reo for a couple of years. Okay, now you've done the research, you've got the theory, now
Put it into practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See if it works, or was it, you know?
Yes. Can I ask, and I know you avoided the question previously, but you mentioned your good lady, Tangi Mai, who is Dean of Te Wānanga ki te ao at Te Whakarae Waikato, a University of Waikato. It would not be a surprise to many of us if you ended up going back into academia, and I know you were putting the research into practice. Is there a different way in which you want to put research back into practice? Put research into practice, I mean. Or are you now keen to do some more research? Given the poor state of some research you may have evaluated previously.
I'm trying to avoid those requests. I've had a few offers to go back to the academy, but like I said, at the moment I've been really enjoying working with our communities under Te Mātāwai, who's afforded me that opportunity. So I'm most grateful for. So I think I'm trying to stay a bit more in touch with our communities. I think...
Why is that? Why is that, Ahorangi? Why is that such a need?
Because you go out there and you see the efforts of people on the ground, providing their own resources, their own drive, trying to do a lot of stuff. Whereas in the academy, they're far from impoverished. Most there, that's a wealthy type of community. It's a privileged community. So I think they're okay. They don't need the likes of me, but some of our small whānau, in my small town of Murupara, it's been walking the street with some of them, and I've been removed from there for many years. Now I need to go and build my own credibility back in Murupara. And you only do that by being at and being able to, small things, being able to attend tangianga and that, which I couldn't do in the past. And the roles, you're in roles that demand a lot of your time. Your whānau lose, and so I'm on the paybacks at the moment.
Are you feeling the pull of home?
Absolutely.
Is that a mokopuna pull?
Oh, everything pull. Everything pull, My wife's pining for me night and day, 24/7. So
is that
pull.
right?
The mokopuna, they need someone to give them some tough discipline, koro discipline.
But my understanding is that's not the way that goes most of the time. But it's normally the nanny. But okay, carry on, please.
So they, absolutely, but that pull. Again,
I mean Murupara. Yeah.
Murupara, definitely. Murupara's been really challenged, and I've tried to support culturally and language-wise from afar and found that it hasn't quite worked. We maybe just haven't been able to maintain even in my own hapu. So trying to give back there is definitely a goal. And not just my own marae there, but other marae and other whānau, my te arawa side, and those other iwi and those affiliations, being able to just be part of them, be with them and support those, however, if able to.
No, okay. Tēnā koe i whakaro. I just wanted to also ask, and I hope you don't mind me doing so, you wrote the book on Whai Kōrero. I'm fortunate to have access to a copy that you may have gifted to someone who is familiarly related to me, which I may reference on a number of occasions. Is that something you also might look at doing? I mean, it seems to me that you've got a lot of perspective to put that might actually find some real benefit in the literary world.
I think the Whai Kōrero, like you said, with all the documentaries and the work alongside the work of Se Pautemara and Kura Reo and Te Panikiretanga, I think it's okay. There's probably not so much need there. I don't know where the need is. To be honest, I wouldn't mind launching into a bit of fictional stuff. The fictional stuff, of course.
I roto I te reo?
I roto I te reo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would be wicked.
And really all I'm doing, Julian, is taking your private life and fictionalising it. Passing up as my own credit. But yeah, there's something, as well as language related though. It's not so much the content as it is bringing some old language back to use and putting it into some context which may have some, some performative opportunity at a later stage. So that's a secret.
That you've just shared with the nation now.
Yeah.
But do you feel that? Because, I mean, I harken back to people like Te hei koko Katerina Mataira. You know, and that was a bit of work that she was doing, which was absolutely needed. I think to try and fulfil some, to make resources actually for kura, but then people like me who were in kura at the time found them of benefit for us just to read things, fictional, and turns of phrase and things like that, narrative and all that kind of thing. So you want to do that not so much for the resource, but just as an outlet.
But an outlet, and as another form to get language less used more.
Yeah, beautiful.
Get a bit of creative juices flowing there. Was something I used to do a long time ago when when Māori language resources were few. I was translating, all those pake waitara Pākehā for my little cousin, just to give her access to something which Māori was her first language. So, so that's always been a passion. I'd be creative, writing poetry and on occasions, composing a couple of items in the past. Being in this role has been less creative. You always put much in a reporting, formal type of environment. So haven't been able to touch that stuff I used to enjoy doing.
Yeah, you get caught in the operational.
Yes.
Are you holding? And implementation of strategy from a board and all that kind of thing, so I understand that. Do you mind if I ask you a question? And I don't know if you've ever been asked this. I heard a rumour about your oral exam for your doctorate, and you were put through your paces by a pretty meaty panel of experts. This may or may not be true. It's become urban myth, possibly because I keep telling people about it and I don't even know if it's true. I don't want to say who was there, but is it true that you were really put through your paces in your oral exam? And by, as I say, experts of whaikorero and oratorical articulation. And fair enough, by the way, given, that it is a real important part of Māori society, language, tika, all that kind of thing. But without trying to allude too much who was involved, have I got it generally right that that's what happened?
Yes, no, I think I'm happy to name those people.
Okay.
Timoti, Pou, and Whakarae Rewi. And sometimes in the Western context, that's a bit of a conflict of interest, but it's more of a conflict. In my case, it was these ones being my elders, probably put me through more grilling than normal, because at the end of the day, it was to ensure that there's going to be no question that this person received this merit of a doctoral degree without being put through the paces. And I guess really that's a bit easier than being put through the paces on the marae Aotea in a great public forum, to be judged and assessed by your peers who you know and you don't know. So I think it was good 2 hours of grilling there. And all of them, they all come from with different strengths, different approaches. And I think it was a privilege to have those three uncles assist me.
I shudder to think what that must have been like. I can only imagine. Okay, so I'm just glad I've got the tenor pretty much of the conversation right. So allow me to extrapolate further then. Holding on that as I recall that event in my own way to other people without actually knowing the facts of the case. But as you know, journalism never let the facts get in the way of a good story. If you don't mind, I wanted to ask one final question. And we talked about your academic career and now obviously leaving Te Mātāwai. When you were at kura, what did you want to do?
To be honest, Julian, I wanted to go and be a mechanic.
In Murupara?
In Murupara.
There?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, my father back then, my father was a bit of a mechanic, self-taught. So he worked on, back in the day, I hear he worked on all those Triumphs and Harley Davidsons and those, and zone vehicles, all those old V8s, those Chevys. And we always had an old Chevy parked up at home. Of course, as a young person, wow, look at all the Americans. And then I think one night I said to my dad, Father, that's me. I'm going to finish school. I think I was about 14. I'm going to finish school. And he goes, oh, yeah, okay, cool. So what are you going to do? Oh, yeah, no, I want to be a man. That was pretty cool. Then he goes, okay, cool, we can do that. So it was get up at dawn and then come back until dusk working. After a couple of weeks, I thought, actually, I think school mightn't be a bad option. So I went back. I didn't know what I was doing. You know, you just go to school, don't know what you're doing. Then I ended up going to, actually, no, I was initially going to Massey, not to Massey, to Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, DSIA at the time. So I'd been accepted there. And when I went down there, I ran into a Pākehā fellow, and he says, hey, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm coming to this role. He goes, what do you want to do? I want to do this. He goes, this is not the place for you. So that little conversation that went by, I changed my mind, followed my mates, take the mates up to Waikato, started off doing business management, bit of a failure at that. Wanted to do law. Law I was really keen on doing. I think I was be quite argumentative apparently. Asked too many questions with my parents. And was just got accepted for law school, and a dear friend of both yours and mine, the lady hidden in Melbourne, said, nah, because I need him to approve me to go into law. And he said, nah, we got enough lawyers, we need doctors. And I cursed him because it took me a whole year to get accepted into law school. And in one word, he just declined it. And I was sour with our mate there for a while. And then, anyway, got over it. You know, got put back on a track. Go and do your honours, social sciences, go and do your honours, and Māori studies, arts, then the PhD. And then what happened there was when I did the PhD after that, I found I was actually going sitting on a lot of panels, NZQA panels of a lot of our Māori providers, Māori educational providers.
Yep.
And I realised I was able to lend in on and interpret the Western frames against our Māori models and bring the two together to be able to get stuff over there and then help, assist some of our Māori academic providers to actually deliver what they was required of them. Mm-hmm. And then that's when I came to realise what Hirani was saying. What he wanted me to do was do the PhD so I can actually support those ones over there. Where they were being challenged purely because Māori wasn't a natural nice fit for the Western frameworks.
Tēnā koe. E te horangi tēnā koe i nei kōrero, i a tāwe kōrero, i era whakaaro koe whakapukenea koe. Kia kārai ruta ngā mahi e pukai ake nei te ororo. A koe hea te huarai ka takahia mo i ho tunu. He ara whakawhanake ake i hea koe. Mo tō tātou iwi te pai ngātu, mo tātou reo te oranga ake. Nō re te horangi no hoi hora me ngā manaakitanga kia koe, kia korua ko tō hoa, korua tamariki a korua Māpuna. Hanui te mihi kia koe.
Tēnei ka mea ke Julian kia koe whakaranga sinei tā tātou kaupapa tō tātou reo. A tātou kaupapa katoa. Ana ko koe tēnā e whakamātauhi ana e aki nana ki te prawa. E wero hia ki te tāroa o tēnei hanga o te mātauranga. Kia kahare atu o mai. Te whāngaingai nei te reo ki o tamariki ki o Māpuna i tōna wā. Me tō makau putātu ki te whānau whānui. Tēnei ka mea koe nā pātai nei mo te Mātāwai. Ki hoki te reo, hei reo Māori nei, i te kāinga i waho i te kāinga i tōna ao. I ana piki, i ana heke, i ana papatahitanga. Tēnei a poia mihi nei, kia kote hoki nā kai whakarunga mai. Where you can lend into some important to te reo Māori. It has more benefits than the language alone, and also more benefits for Māori alone. Our people, our nation will benefit of it.
Te horangi tēnā koe. Our guest today has been Professor Poia Rewi. Join us next week on Māpuna. We will be live from Te Mātāwai, Te Kahu. Oh, I forgot to ask Kahorangi Poia Rewi about Te Mātāwai, who the dark horse is. Anyway, we get to that later on. Join us next week live for Te Mātāwai from Te Mātāwai o Te Kahui Maunga ki ngā mutu Pukekura in New Plymouth. E ki ana te kōrero ko te toka i a ki ha he toka whitianga rā. Ko te toka i Māpuna ko tāu, e ki te ai ko te ripokau. Te hewa mauri ora, kia tātou katoa.